How old is your child?
24.
All right. What is their disorder?
Tony was diagnosed when he was 9 as high functioning autistic with OCD.
Okay. Does your child have any siblings?
Yes, one brother, small. No.
Okay. How do they interact with each other?
Uh, it's hard to say because they're 5 years apart, but whenever it's involved video games, very well. Other than that, it clashes.
Mm-hmm.
They
So what
clashed.
do you mean when you say like it clashes?
They just the little one didn't get along with Tony because he didn't know how to play with Tony,
Mm-hmm.
and Tony didn't know how to play with Jeremy.
Yeah.
When it didn't involve video games, Jeremy was very social. He had a lot of friends. Tony only had one friend that was like him, and so they didn't play much together unless it involved video games.
Okay. Does your child have a daily routine?
Yes, he did.
Mm-hmm.
When he was first diagnosed, yes, we've had, well, actually, before he was diagnosed, we used to get up at a certain time, and breakfast was at 8 o'clock, lunch was at 12 o'clock, nap time, and snack times were, yes, he had a very strict routine growing up. As a matter of fact, when we found out he was autistic, they said that because of the routine I had him on, probably saved me a lot of meltdowns than what he was having.
Yeah.
So I lessened the meltdowns because of the routine I had him on.
So if you ever got off the routine, did
Yes,
that cause an issue?
he would melt down. Yes, anytime we went off the routine, he would melt down when he was younger. But as he got older, he got so much better at getting used to getting off routine, because as we got older, and I was working, everything just changed. So and for the first 9 years of his life, besides the routine that we had, I didn't know he was autistic. So when I'd go off and he'd have a meltdown,
Yeah.
I treated him like a normal child. So he got punished for,
Yeah.
misbehaving.
Yeah.
And so he learned real quick, to adjust to the times that we went off schedule.
Okay. How would you compare, like, does he eat everything, or is he picky with his eating, or anything like that?
He eats everything.
Okay.
Unless it involves vegetable, he is not picky.
Gotcha.
He will not eat vegetables. Except here lately, he will try a bite, but he will eat baby spinach, and he'll eat corn, but that's not a vegetable. And that's about it. That's all I can get him to eat right now.
Okay.
So that's better than none, huh?
How do you discipline him, and like what would you say your parenting style is?
Well, when they were younger, they got time out and have their favorite things taken away from them. And as they got older, they were sent to their rooms and had their video games or music or whatever their favorite thing was at the time. Was very effective in getting them, punishing them. So, and there was one time, there was one time where I did spank them, and that worked too.
So, do you discipline your younger son different than your older son?
No, I did them both the same, all the way up until Jeremy went into junior high, and then I had to change it. Especially the only thing that worked with him was take away the cell phone. Yep.
What has been the most challenging part of raising a special needs child?
Getting help, finding help. When he was first diagnosed, we were like left out into the cold. He was diagnosed this summer when he was 9, his third grade year. He was in third grade. He just turned 9. It was the month before they were to go to summer vacation, and we get the call, your son is autistic. But that's the best kind of autistic to have, is high functioning. That's exactly what the psychiatrist said to me. If you have to have an autistic child, you've got the best kind. And I was like, what? What do we do now? Where are we supposed to go? And she says, well, we should look into finding programs. And I said, well, does he need medication? Well, I mean, she was giving me nothing.
Yeah.
And she said, no, he won't need medication. He can learn by repetition. As long as you teach him repeatedly, he will get it and will be able to function in society. And go through your school to see about finding programs that will help you. And hung up. And we were left kind of like lost in the wind there. And so I checked with the school, and he was already in a special eds program with an aide because of the way he behaved in school. Academically, he was off the charts. Literally, his IQ was not off the chart for high IQ, but he had last time we had him tested, he was at 103.
Oh, wow.
Which is pretty high for a high functioning, they tell me. And so because of that, he didn't qualify for any of the autism help that was out there because he was too high. All the programs that were available were for children that didn't know how to tie their shoes or couldn't function, in society.
Yeah.
And Toni was considered to be able to function in society, even though he was autistic. So, until you interact with him, and then when you interact with him, there's something wrong. There's just something off there. Socially, he was just not there.
Yeah.
You and I are holding a conversation. Toni doesn't talk back and forth. He's gotten better at it as he's gotten older, but before he would talk at you. And if you weren't talking about what he was interested in, he had no time for you. No time whatsoever. And so it's just been really hard to find any kind of help that would. It wasn't until July of last year I finally found the program I've been searching for 5 years through Goodwill to finally get him in there to help him function in the workforce. And so he just finished that February. At the end of February, he finished the Goodwill program, 6 months. He was in it for 7 months, but they gave him an extra month to make sure that he could, he did such good on the last month. They said, let's give it one more month just to make sure it stuck. So, but it's a work called WATS program, Work Adjustment Training, through Goodwill. And I knew it existed. So I finally found it and got him into it, and they paid him while they taught him.
That's cool.
And he worked an actual job in the Goodwill, at Goodwill. And he started off at the Campus Drive in Fort Worth, and then he moved over to the Lamar, to the retail part, before he was behind the scenes in the warehouse. And then we moved him up to be able to interact with customers, and he's never been in that kind of environment before, actually having to talk to them and work with them and do things. And so there was a lot of adjustment, a lot of things that we had to work on with him, and he did so good. I was so proud of him. And so now we're on the second phase of the program when we're actually working with, it used to be called DARS, Department of Aging and Rehabilitation or something like that. They call it something else now. CPS and DARS and all those, they're always changing their letters. Can't keep up. So now he's working with a job coach, and they're going to go out and fill out applications at employments where he wants to work, and then she will stay with him from the application all the way to when he actually gets a job. She'll train with him on the job to make sure he's learning the training and all that, and once he masters that, she will step away a little bit at a time until she doesn't need to be there anymore, and he'll have a job on his own and be working. That's our goal right now.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's just the hardest thing is finding help. I finally found help, but he's 24 years old.
Yeah.
But I have to look at it this way again. We started when he was 18, trying to get him a job and trying to find help and all that, and it just wasn't happening. And going on the internet, Lord help me, it was like I'm just thrown to the wolves, and you don't know where to turn, and one site leads you to another site, and it's just to where you don't want anything to do with the internet, because I wasn't finding what I needed on there. And all of it wasn't in Texas. Or if it was like too far away, or I couldn't afford it.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's been really hard. It's gotten better now that I finally found Goodwill.
Do you think that over the years, as he's gotten older, there's been more knowledge about autism? That's gotten easier that way, or?
Yeah. When he was first diagnosed, we were told that the autism spectrum, Asperger's, because he's on the cuff between autism and Asperger, and he had just a little bit to spill him over to the high functioning autism, but he still has a lot of the Asperger's behavior. And they told us that it was 1 in 100,000 when he was first diagnosed. And he was born in '93 and 9 years old. What's that? 2000, 2001, 2002. He was diagnosed in 2002.
Oh, wow.
And they said it was like 1 in 100,000 or, yeah. And now it's 1 in 100. Something like that.
Oh, so it's changed a lot.
A lot.
What is the best part about raising a child who's special needs?
Before we knew he was autistic, he was like the perfect baby. That first year when, I don't know, you don't know, but the first year that you have a baby, you get that book, What to Expect When You're Expecting. And of course I had that book. And of course I was right along, except for the weight gain, I was going along the way I was supposed to be going. And so they also have the section, Your Baby's First Year. And the section, it says at 2 months they should be doing this, at 4 months they should be doing this, 4 months holding their bottle, 2 months sitting up, 6 months rolling over, that sort of thing, or crawling. It's 4 months holding bottle, rolling over, and 6 months crawling and all that. And he was like right on the spectrum of that. As a matter of fact, he was kind of a little ahead, because by the time he was 8 months, he was walking. He started walking when he was 8 months old, yes. And he loved to just, as long as we were on our routine, that first year, we'd get up and he started watching Barney when he was 2 months old. And that was sometimes the only way we would get him to be quiet, was to put Barney on. But, and we knew almost by then that there was something different about Toni. He wasn't quite the typical baby you run into, because he didn't like to be held the natural in the arms. He always wanted to be upright, where he was looking out. Either you had his back to your chest, or his stomach to your chest, so he could look over your shoulder or look in front of you. He never liked to lay down in your arms. And he was standing by the time he was 2. He could stand up on his own with no hands. But he wasn't walking. He could just stand for like 5 or 10 seconds, and then he'd sit down. And so he was such a good baby, because he would eat, he would take his nap, he would eat a snack, he'd watch TV and just go along. And I was thinking, if all my babies could come out like this, I'd have 10 of them, I'd have a lot of them. But this was before we knew he was diagnosed. And as he got older, that first 5 years, he was just, except when we tried to put him in daycare when he was 2, and he went to the part, he was starting to talk, and then he stopped talking. And when we tried to put him in daycare, he stopped talking, he stopped eating. So we had to take him out of daycare after 2.5 weeks of doing that. And then he wouldn't talk again until he was 5. When he went back to grunting and crying and pointing, and would not say words to us at all until he was in kindergarten. When they put him in a special needs class, he started talking again. And so it's just, he was the best child until, and even after that, even now, and he's such a good helper, and he worries about me so much. It kind of, he'll tell me, "Mama, you're my whole world."
Aww.
Which scares me, because I can't be his whole world. What's going to happen if something happens to me? That's why I'm so thankful I finally found this Goodwill program, because I'm trying to get him to where he can be independent, because the psychiatrist said he could be independent. He could be taught to be independent. And so I want to get him to that place where he can be independent while we're still here. So when we're not, he'll be able to survive on his own.
Yeah.
And I know his little brother will help him.
Mm-hmm.
I know it. But he can't always be there either.
Yeah.
He'll have his own life. So that's the
actually
scary part.
Leads me to my next question, which is, do you have any plans for their late adulthood? If so, what are they? So, like, maybe afterwards.
Yeah, to get him independent, get him to where he can actually live on his own. We tried a group home back when he was 20. Was he 20? Yeah. 18 or between. No, he was 20. And he lasted 8 months. And I think he would have done better, lasted even longer, probably still be there by now, if they hadn't moved in a new adult, who was also autistic like Toni. But his behavior, he just liked to pick on Toni. He just loved mimicking Toni and picking on Toni, and just would invade Toni's space, go into his room without asking or knocking, and getting in Toni's face, and so it got to where I would get calls that they had a confrontation as far as getting in each other's face and calling each other name and cussing each other out. And then when it got physical, they were throwing cokes in each other's face and wrestling or fighting on the ground. His first fight.
Mm-hmm.
I said, okay, that's it. And I would talk to him and tell him, I said, why aren't you doing anything about this? And they said, as far as we are concerned, they are independent individuals living in this group home, and they kind of have to work it out themselves.
Mm-hmm.
I said, but you got to put something in place to help them work it out. I mean, counseling or something. Oh, we talk to them and tell them not to do it.
Yeah.
I said, well, then my son's coming home. So, yeah. But other than that, I want to get him to where he can be independent and on his own, which he can do. I know he can do it.
Yeah. Okay, the final question is there anything you would like the world to know about your child or autism?
There's nothing really I can contribute that the world probably doesn't already know by now. It's very well known now.
Mm-hmm.
It's hard to find support groups here in little old Alvarado, Texas, that's for sure.
Yeah.
I know. Toni is very special. He's such a good kid. Very good kid. Other than that, no.